We on?
We're on.
Hi, everyone. I'm Emily.
And I'm Vince.
And this is the Lighthouse Lowdown. Turned up slightly. I've noticed our cat lays on it.
Our cat lays on it?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, on the soundboard?
Yes.
That makes sense.
Which is why sometimes the little things are off.
Yeah, I've wondered, like, in theory, why would I ever need to change? There's a bunch of knobs and sliders and stuff.
Yeah.
Well, because of Bo.
Well, now we know.
Now we know.
If only you could lock them down.
If only.
And we can move on to our episode. Now that we've discussed that. So I do have a history buoy today.
All right, let's go.
Very exciting. There will be nothing on the screen.
Okay.
I looked expectantly.
I always like the screen. Yes. What's the buoy of the day?
I'm going to talk about the Maine Lights program, which is something we mentioned in our last episode. And a lot of lighthouses we talk about in Maine are given over to different owners by this program.
Okay.
So I'm going to talk about what it is, where it came from. And so now our listeners will know in the future.
Maine Lights program, M-A-I-N-E. The state.
Yes, the state.
Gotcha.
So the program was passed in 1996 as a way to get lighthouses off the Coast Guard's hand without having to destroy them. And that's what they were having to do in Maine, because lighthouses get old. They replace them with different little skeleton lights or buoys or something. And then what do you do with them? They're under the Coast Guard jurisdiction, and there's no way for them to get rid of them unless they destroy them.
Yeah.
So it all started in 1982 when a group of military frogmen, which for people that don't know is basically soldiers
Navy
in
SEALs.
scuba gear.
What?
Yeah, they're
They're not Navy SEAls?
I don't know.
I thought that was a nickname for Navy SEAls, was frogmen.
I saw here, let me look it up.
Man, if the military has its own branch called the frogmen.
Frogman is someone who is trained in scuba diving or swimming underwater in a tactical capacity that includes military and, in some European countries, police work.
So Navy SEAls are frogmen, but frogmen are not all Navy SEAls.
Are all Navy SEAls trained in scuba diving or
Yes.
swimming underwater in tactical capacity?
Very much so, yes.
Okay, well then we're both right.
Cool.
They exploded a lighthouse, like a keeper's house. They had gotten permission to...
On purpose.
Yeah, well, they had gotten permission to blow it up as part of a training exercise. And so the keeper's house they blew up was built in 1903. It's the one on Mistake Island, which... The house was meant to implode. That's part of the training exercise. It was meant to implode, but instead it exploded and damaged the helipad that was out there and some of the panes in the tower. So obviously nobody knows that they're doing this. Also left a crater in the ground, which that island is all rock, so it's still there.
So they used a little too much C4.
Sure.
A lot too much.
So the townspeople were obviously unaware that this was going to be happening and were very angry and heartbroken because they just used something historical and meaningful to the townspeople as a training exercise. And it didn't even go well. It wasn't even a good experience for anybody involved. So this spurred the formation of the Island Institute, which now basically works with coastal communities in environmental, sustainability, and restoration efforts.
Okay.
So they're still around. When the Heron Neck Light Keeper's House was damaged by a fire, the Institute worked with the Coast Guard and Congress to pass legislation that allowed the Heron Neck Light to be transferred to private owners for free in exchange for restoring it. So it was just,
cool.
It was...
mutually...
what is the word?
Satisfactory.
I'm trying to think of...
Symbiotic.
No, it was focused just on this one lighthouse in transferring it. So they wrote, legislation in order to pass this on. And it got them thinking, why don't we do this with all of the lighthouses that you guys want to be rid of?
Yeah.
So the Coast Guard identified 36 lighthouses in Maine that could be transferred under the Maine Lights program, passed in 96. After all the legal material was funded by the donation of 300 limited edition prints of a painting of Southern Island Light painted by artist Jamie Wyeth.
That's nice.
Ultimately, 27 lighthouses were transferred into private ownership. The American Lighthouse Foundation scooped up several of the leftover lighthouses, so they weren't they didn't get rid of them or anything. 2 years after the transfers were completed, Congress passed the National Historic Lighthouse Preservation Act, which we talk about a lot too, which was based on the Maine Lights program and established the process for transferring any federal property across the country to government agencies and nonprofits.
So that was 1980s, 1990s, all this happened?
1996.
Wow.
Maine Lights program.
I had thought the what's the
What?
the act. Sorry.
Oh, the other one?
The Maine Act.
National Historic Lighthouse Preservation Act.
Yes. National Historic Lighthouse Preservation Act had happened earlier. I would have guessed like 60s or 70s.
No.
Because the Coast Guard got into lighthouses in the 30s.
39.
Right? Right?
Yeah.
And then I'm thinking of Absecon Lighthouse, where we talked about there's kind of been booms and busts in lighthouse tourism and funding to go along with a lot of other financial trends, but in the United States. But okay, so 2000, let's say circa 2000 was when a lot of them were transferred to individuals, and then are individuals representative of lighthouse friends groups, like friends of.
Yeah, and it would be transferred to that whole organization, not just like people.
Okay.
So
Nice.
it had to be.
It wasn't just someone bought them.
Yeah, it had to be a government agency or like a nonprofit.
Very good. That's smart.
Agreed. But that's the Maine Lights program. So anytime we're talking about a Maine lighthouse and they say it got transferred over, it's from this specifically.
Cool.
So there's a lot of cool history about it, but I had to keep it history buoy length.
Well, it's huge. I mean, that alone has been responsible for so many lighthouses still around today in 2024.
And I wanted to go through and say which lighthouses and like what happened after that. Some of them had changes of ownership and everything. So, but there was a good article about it. It will be in our show notes.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Thanks.
So now I can move on to our lighthouse of the day.
Good buoy.
Or should I say lighthouses? Woo, woo. Every time you press a button, I'm like, animal noises. Ah, ah. Woo, woo.
It's natural.
I can't help it. We rarely press the button, so anytime one goes off, I'm like, hey, the buttons.
It's lights on. Wow.
So ironically, I'm not covering a Maine lighthouse today, even though I just talked about
what a spin move.
I know. I didn't even think about it. I had it picked out, and then I was like, oh, we talked about Maine Lights program, and we were like, what even is that? And like, I don't know. I should probably cover it. So we're actually going to South Carolina, Cape Romain, South Carolina.
Nice. Romaine like the lettuce?
Like the lettuce.
Nice.
I think it had different names leading up to this final name, like Cape Roma. And then it was like Cape, started with a C, some kind of French.
Cabbage, iceberg.
Sure. Actually,
Caesar.
we might as well. But so normally when a new tower is built, in the past, our past episodes, when a new tower is built, they tend to destroy the original tower, especially if it's like beat down or
goes to sea,
not serving the purpose correctly or whatever else. And like in the case of the Three Sisters, they just let them fall into the ocean.
Crazy.
Sometimes they leave both lighthouses, even if one of them's not being used. And some cases, like today, and rarely, are both still used even after they build a lighthouse to replace a different one. So this is the case for the Cape Romain Lighthouses.
Okay, nice.
In 1823, Congress appropriated $10,000 to build a lighthouse on Cape Romain, planning to use an old stone windmill that mariners had been mistaking for a lighthouse near Charleston. So they kept seeing this windmill, thinking it was a lighthouse, and mistaking it for like a lighthouse on their charts and stuff.
It's a shame they didn't see the big windmill part. Just the tower.
Yeah, I wonder how tall this thing was.
It must have been a light up high. They're like, oh yeah.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, a light though. Why would they put a light on a windmill?
I mean, they wouldn't put a light, but you could see.
Like a day mark sort of thing.
I don't know.
It had to have happened several times for this to be applicable. But anyway, the area of this windmill was prone to flooding, and so they decided to build at a slightly higher elevation, and that land was owned already by like somebody else. So they had to go through, of course, the lengthy negotiation phase. And by then, the funds that were appropriated for this lighthouse were sent to surplus funds, which means you can't access them for what their original purpose was. It's like a shame. So they had to wait until 1826 when Congress appropriated $17,000 for the lighthouse, which was finished a year later.
Nice. Good timeline.
Here's a picture of the area we're talking about.
Yeah. Near Charleston.
Yes. It's like 30 miles from Charleston. I'll talk about McClellanville is how I'm deciding to pronounce it with no background.
Yeah, I was just up in Goose Creek.
What's Goose Creek?
That's where I was at.
For work?
Yeah.
Interesting. Well, cool. You
Not
know
far.
exactly what I'm talking about today then.
I do.
So I just pulled up a picture of the original lighthouse. It wasn't white at the beginning. This picture is a little bit later. 65-foot brick conical tower with lamp and reflectors. So we're not to the era of, well, we are to the era of Fresnel lenses almost, but this one is still a lamp and reflectors.
It looks like it's not an enclosed cupola.
Like the lantern room is more like skeletal or something. Is
it white or?
I think it's white.
Okay.
And this is a really old photo, like 1800s still. So
very cool.
Exposure probably wasn't 100%.
Yeah, maybe it's just metal. I don't know.
Yeah, true. I'm pretty sure it was white. I remember reading that it was white. It was built on Raccoon Key, which is now known as Lighthouse Island because there are lighthouses on it. Genius.
Is it haunted by chance? Because look at that kid in front of the house.
Oh, God. Anyone who wants to go see it.
Very spooky photo.
Very creepy. I wouldn't be surprised if it's haunted, and I'll tell you more about it later.
Oh.
So it's Lighthouse Island now. It used to be Raccoon Key. There was a few other names for it too, but I'm sticking with those, which is 6 miles offshore from the mainland. And as there were no ports in the vicinity, the main purpose was to warn away from a shoal that was 9 miles southeast of this little island. But
Charleston, then.
Yeah. But the beacon they built was too weak, which seems, if my memory is correct, the one who designed and built this was Winslow Lewis, who had a hand in, who I think invented the lamp and reflectors combination.
Okay, I don't know that.
Okay, and he built a couple of lighthouses, like designed and built, but I don't think that's what he was trained in. So.
You don't think he was trained in
Yeah, I have a vague memory that Winslow Lewis built some lighthouses that failed like within a decade, like very quickly.
Oof.
But I don't know him.
Yeah.
So you never really know.
Maybe that's true.
Could be wrong. Just a little precursor there, everybody.
How many islands are called Lighthouse Island, do you think?
I was thinking about that because of how every time we drive down a road to a lighthouse, it's called Lighthouse Road. It's
like surrounded by water island. Like,
yeah.
Oh my God. Beaches Island. Oh, wow.
The name was changed at some point, and I don't have in my notes of when that was, but it obviously it's had different names.
Well, I'm getting carried away, but Hog Island.
Uh-huh.
Hog Island, we talked about first being in the Bahamas, is a common now it's Paradise Island, that one.
Yeah.
Look it up. Cruise stores. Oh my gosh. Cruise ships.
You buy your cruise.
You buy a cruise there. No. But anyways, that's worth a look up as well. But there's several other hog islands I've stumbled upon since then. I think that was something people did is they put pigs on an island.
Oh,
to keep them there.
That makes sense.
They would reproduce and grow, and you'd go take some. And anyways,
they talk about this island once it's abandoned.
Oh, really?
It's covered in goats, and they had to actually remove the goats because they were messing everything up.
Nice.
So maybe it could be Goat Island.
Goat Island.
Yeah.
Greatest of all time.
So 1847, they redid the beacon, but it still wasn't good enough. And described as, quote, small and useless by the Lighthouse Board.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, very sad.
It failed twice.
I know. It's just a little guy.
He was doing his best.
So 1852, Congress appropriated $20,000 and then another $30,000 to build a, quote, first class seacoast light. And we love it when they say that because they're always tall, they're always first order, and sexy.
Nice.
I got a photo.
Did I tell you I got made fun of at work for describing an architecture thing as sexy? No, I wasn't being serious. I was trying to say that there's a plain, plain Jane, whatever.
Yeah.
A plain, normal, and then there's this one. And I was just having fun with the conversation. I was like, this one's sexy. This one's curved, and it's got the louvers, and it's got the paint match. And the architect I was talking to, project manager, she was like, I have never heard anyone describe anything like that as sexy.
Inanimate and HVAC
louvers
is sexy.
It was a rain hood or something.
Okay.
Like, not a sexy thing. Right.
Well, you and I are on the same wavelength then.
Sexy lighthouses. Look at it.
We pull up a photo of the two lighthouses next to each other, and this is how they stayed. So they're best friends. One is labeled Old Town, and the other is New. Old Tower. Old Tower. It's the cursive ER that's getting me. But I was going to say, I've never heard them described as Old Town and New Town. That's because they're not.
Because we needed a 65-inch screen to see Old Tower and New Tower.
Exactly. That's what it is. It's that now we're on a big screen and I can see.
What is that, though? Lighted Janie, 1858?
One.
Jany?
Janie.
January?
Yes.
So
they are
January
weird.
Their handwriting. Whoever wrote this in 1858
wrote this is weird. We've established it. Moving on. So anyway, the new tower is a 150-foot natural brick octagonal tower. Octagonal tower. And was built with a white flashing first order Fresnel lens. Very hot, smoking hot tower.
Nice. What's that range? 34 miles?
No. Probably at most like 20 some, 23,
I'm going to say 30 plus.
25. Okay.
Hot.
The two towers were easy to spot during the day, as the original tower was painted with red and white bands, which you can see in this picture. There's some remnants of, but the brick is starting to show through the white paint. So this old tower, while it remained and was lit, was kind of neglected.
And this is the one they ended up blowing up?
No, that's separate.
Okay. I was going to say that they're surprised it damaged the new tower.
This is what I was talking about, how ironic it was that I wasn't even going to cover.
Oh my gosh, we're not even talking about Maine.
Yeah, I know. We're talking South Carolina, baby.
You even told, okay.
But I was like, maybe I should cover that lighthouse if I'm going to talk about the Maine Lights program. Got the ball rolling and everything. No, it's something else.
Imagine if someone just skipped the lighthouse buoy and they're listening to this.
Yeah, they're like, what are you talking about?
What?
Do you think people skip our history buoys?
No.
All right, listeners, if our history buoys are really boring, let us know. We can stop. Actually, it would be a large weight off my shoulders. I actually enjoyed doing this one, though. I think things like legislation is more exciting because it's important and permanent and very fun.
For sure.
Widespread. Okay, sorry. Red and white bands on the old tower. New tower was a reddish gray from the brick, so it wasn't even painted. It was just
natural.
Like this dark, moody.
Kind of sexy.
I was like, I cannot say it again. That's too much. I'm just joking around, but it is a really nice looking tower. And octagonal's fun. We don't have a lot of octagonal lighthouses.
Nope, not a lot.
At night, the original light was fixed red. Love that. With the new flashing once every minute. So very slow revolution going on. Had clockwork mechanism and everything.
Nice.
This is the first lighthouse also that I saw that mentioned it was built by slave labor.
Oh.
Which is fitting as just a few miles south, the first shots of the Civil War were fired at Fort Sumter. So I wasn't going to dive too deep into that. I could. But it was the first lighthouse I've seen that specified how it was built.
1800s.
I never considered that would be a thing.
When was the Declaration
of Independence?
No.
Oh, I'm like, this is drilled into us.
Oh, come on. I'm failing. The Proclamation of Emancipation.
Oh.
That's what I was trying to say.
Let's look it up.
Just for curiosity. Because I know when I visited Charleston years ago, we talked, the historical tour focused on slave markets.
1863.
Significant. Oh, man. Some of the last legal slaves had to build a lighthouse.
So the lighthouse lantern room was destroyed to avoid being used by either side in the war, which I think is interesting. Is that we've heard in the past when it's destroyed by like artillery or it's destroyed because they dismantled it and lost it or something. But this is like they beat the crap out of it so that neither side could use it.
That happened to a lot of lighthouses.
Yeah, but like I haven't heard about any that are like, instead of preserving the lens for use later, they just in the moment just destroyed it.
I think it was, I don't know. I guess I don't know the history of the Civil War. I was going to say it's probably too close to the borderline to where they can't afford to lose it, but don't know.
True. But it was fixed and relit in 1866. So 3 years after the end.
Nice.
Over this time, the tower had developed a very noticeable lean, which you may see in later photos. It looks very nice and upright in this picture that I have up. But it started leaning almost 2 feet. And the lean increased by 3 inches within the next year, but then apparently stabilized, so they didn't do anything about it. But it's gotten worse as time has gone on.
Oh, no.
So the station also had 3 keepers' dwellings and a boathouse. 2 keepers' dwellings were added at the same time this tower was added because they added
more staff.
2 assistant keepers to the existing head keeper, because now we have a clockwork lens, we have a Fresnel lens, and a very tall tower. So all of it's just like a ton of added work. So they added 2 assistants and 2 assistant dwellings. And in 1886, the old tower got a concrete floor and a fireproof door so that it could serve as an oil house. So that's pretty neat. Usually,
fancy oil house.
Yeah, usually we have oil houses that are cute, small,
pointy
red, like in our last episode. But this time they just converted the old one into an oil house.
Smart.
Freaking cool.
It's funny to me, it didn't have a concrete floor before then.
You think it's stone, probably.
Dirt? Whatever.
Yeah,
whatever's inside the structure.
I didn't think about it.
I think I've only seen concrete floors, or maybe I haven't paid attention. I don't know.
I guess I haven't either. I haven't looked too closely at the floor. Too busy looking up.
I have some photos of Long Point floor. Or was it the other one? That was near Long Point.
Oh, that's right. Wood End.
Wood End. Yeah, it was Wood End. Pretty sure.
Oh. We'll have to take a look. I bet it's concrete.
I think it is.
Because Long Point and Wood End, they didn't look like, those are added later. They used to be keepers' houses with lens on them.
Oh, really? Integral? I forgot about that.
From what I remember. We'll have to actually do episodes on them. But anyway, eventually the old tower was painted white, which is what we saw in the first picture that I pulled up, with the new tower being red. And then the new tower was painted white on the bottom half, with the top half painted alternating white and black.
Cool.
And then they painted the old tower red. So that's what we have today. They're
really showing off.
Yeah, very unique. It's because it's octagonal, again, that we get these cool alternating colors on the sides. Why are you smiling at me? You think I'm goofy?
Yep.
1931, the new tower was modernized. So they added electric generators, replaced the incandescent oil vapor lamp with a 500-watt electric bulb, which increased the light's candle power from 280,000 to 430,000. So we got a good double in, less than double of our power inside the Fresnel lens.
Candle power.
Mm-hmm. McClellanville's villagers began holding Cape parties, is what they called it, because it's really lonely out there at Lighthouse Island. And there were 3 families living on this island by themselves, and it's 6 miles offshore. So it's not like I keep saying our last episode, but our last episode, they were 100 yards away. They just come over whenever. This was like pretty secluded and lonely. So they'd have Cape parties, and they would play games, swim, catch fish, and collect crabs and oysters. And then they would roast all of the food that they find at the end and eat together.
That sounds awesome.
Pretty cute. The lighthouse was automated after the last headkeeper had an accident with acid, which I didn't get to see too much into it. Someone mentioned an explosion, and there was acid, and he got burns on his face and his eyeballs in 1937, and that was the end of... They just automated it instead of bringing new people on.
It's hard to replace that guy.
Yeah, whoever he was.
What happened to the last guy? Explosion of acid? Oh.
I was like, maybe we shouldn't. It was like the source that I read said pouring acid into a container or something. I'm like, why do we have acid? And what about pouring acid makes an explosion?
You tell me, chemical engineer.
Weird stuff. No, thank you. The lighthouse was actually abandoned in 1947 and has been sitting since then. No big renovations.
Really?
No visitors. I mean, there's some visitors. I'll talk about it too, but it's it's just full.
It's a long time.
Full on abandoned. I know. It was added to the national. Another thing is that the shoal that it was marking was they marked it with lit buoys, so
to replace the need for the light tower.
Exactly. They added these to the National Register of Historic Places in 1981, so they're protected at least. And right now, the island is a refuge, like a wildlife refuge
for birds.
Yeah, birds and some other stuff. Some of those critters.
Wildlife.
That stuff. So they had a couple. I'm gonna go through a couple of stories. A couple of noteworthy keepers during this time. So it kind of revolves around them. First one I'm going to talk about is why this lighthouse may be haunted. Andrew Johnson, head keeper from 1867 to 1875. So about 8 years, head keeper, really early on. In 1873, Keeper Johnson returned from duty around 9 p.m. to find his wife on the bed, her throat slit.
Oh my God.
From ear to ear. And he ran from the house yelling that she had committed suicide. I'm like, who would commit suicide in such a fashion?
That'd be hard.
And why would you automatically assume? I'm immediately suspicious. When I heard that, I was like, you don't come out and just...
I can't believe she did that to herself.
Look
did you see?
what she did to herself. It's like, you're telling me, oh, she must have been a strong woman to be able to commit that much. So they ruled it a suicide. But there was a gun nearby, a loaded gun. So, like, if she was going to commit suicide, maybe that would have been an easier way to go.
Yeah.
What do you mean,
Yeah.
There was a razor nearby, and I just think I just think maybe she was trying to defend herself, and that's why there was a gun.
With a gun?
I mean, I don't know.
I don't know how you would... yeah. Anyways.
Yeah, anyway, her jewelry was missing, along with $1,400 that she had taken out of the bank 10 days earlier. And at that time, $1,400 was $25,000.
That is suspicious.
Very suspicious. If she commits suicide, where is her stuff?
So what's the supposedly she was going to leave him and took out all the money and he found out and killed her?
Yeah, well, so a couple of interesting facts here. Mrs. Johnson had withdrawn all of her money. This wasn't just like she had withdrawn money for something. She had cleared out her bank account. And she had lots of gold and diamond jewelry that she immigrated from Sweden with. So it's like family stuff. All of it was missing from the crime scene, and Keeper Johnson's jewelry and belongings were untouched.
So he just... Okay.
So there's speculation that she planned to leave him and he murdered her in a rage. Assistant Keeper Lee and his wife were the last ones to see her alive because supposedly at 6 p.m. she went over to their place, and that was the last time anybody had seen anything from her. They both left the lighthouse board, left the island very shortly after this happened, and just disappeared. So that they're also under suspicion. Keeper Johnson continued for 2 more years until he was put onto a new lighthouse. I'm like,
he'd be like, oh yeah, that shit was crazy. I guess
my wife,
back to work.
I better crawl into bed. We better change these sheets.
Better take the oil up.
Like what? I don't know. It's all suspicious. But there's also like, so this is what I forgot about the gun. Someone had attempted to fire it and it misfired. There's all kinds of different storylines. If it was suicide, she may have tried to use the gun first. So I saw online it was on Lighthouse Digest. They did an article on it, and they speculated that if it was suicide, he could have known that she was trying to leave and hid her, her belongings, her money and her like jewelry and everything, so she couldn't leave because where would she go?
Escape. Yeah. And
so she tore apart the house because the house was ransacked. By the way, she probably tore through the house looking for it, couldn't find it, and felt that she had no other option.
Damn.
And so then the gun misfired. She couldn't use that. So then she used a razor, I suppose. But I'm like, I guess that's plausible.
So in the 1800s, semi-automatic firearms were not popular, if there was any at all. Revolvers were still most common for handguns. This could have not been a revolver as well. It could have been a shotgun or a rifle.
Oh.
I just don't know.
Yeah.
But if it was a revolver, and so what I'm guessing is it misfired. So the primer on the back of the cartridge, typically when a gun shoots a bullet, there's a little thing called a hammer. It's a little piece of metal. And it strikes the primer with quite a bit of speed when you pull the trigger. And the primer starts a little fire inside of the cartridge, which lights the gunpowder, and then the bullet goes pew down the gun barrel.
Pew.
So maybe the cartridge the primer had a strike on it. It was dented, which still happens today. It's very rare, but some bullets are just duds.
Mm-hmm.
Or there's squib rounds. A squib round is where not enough of the gunpowder ignites, so the bullet actually gets lodged in the barrel, and the gun's unusable. If you fire it again, it explodes.
Oh,
because there's compression happening inside the barrel. So I don't know. If that happened, it would have made a lot of noise, and she would have severely injured herself.
Mm.
If it was a squib round, and she caught it and was like, "Oh well, this isn't going to work," it's pretty wild. Mm-hmm. Most people don't. Maybe in that scenario you would.
Yeah.
Or maybe if it didn't work once, she's not familiar, and she's like, "Oh, imagine building up to shoot yourself." Like, no, you can't do that again. Like,
right.
I don't know.
But apparently
I'm speaking pretty
bring
cavalierly
up the nerve
about this, but
carve your neck with a razor from ear to ear. I feel like you'd get about maybe maybe I won't go ahead, but I feel like you would quit and not really see it all the way through.
It's a very strange. What I think happened, knowing nothing else, is that he murdered her. She tried to use the gun and it didn't work.
Yeah,
by chance.
And he probably knows enough about it to be like.
And it just made him so mad, and he was physically stronger that he could do that.
Disgusting.
Terrible.
And he got a bunch of money out of it too.
Diamonds. Yeah. So what happened with him? Did he he can't spend that money.
I know.
Right.
Well, I just feel like at this time.
You can't go selling diamonds being like, yeah, well, she left these to me.
Yeah, or probably took him to a pawn shop. They don't track that kind of stuff.
But that's what I'm saying. If he's a lighthouse keeper he kept being a lighthouse keeper.
Yeah, for 2 years here, and then got moved to another lighthouse. So it's not even like he disappeared.
He didn't disappear and then all of a sudden he's living on a yacht in the Bahamas.
Yeah. Although $25,000 today is not that crazy.
I guess it's not that crazy.
But it wouldn't be motive to kill somebody either if they're your loved one.
Emotional.
Yeah, I don't know.
So there's my short episode of Vince speculating.
Thank you for the knowledge. What did you call it?
Vince speculating.
This is all speculation. What I want to know is more details about. They obviously do an autopsy. Mm-hmm. Is she to say defensive wounds? Did it look like she was fighting somebody? They obviously ruled it a suicide. Was that because her husband said it was, or at this time? Probably. It was easy to skew investigations. Very easy.
It looks like someone held her down while she killed herself.
That can't be right.
Crazy how that happens.
She was alone, so it's oh, okay. So anyway.
Awful.
I feel bad because well,
these are people,
Yeah, and there's a possibility that Andrew Johnson did nothing wrong, walked in, and his wife has just committed suicide. But he talked some crap about her afterwards, so.
Maybe she did it on purpose. Maybe she tried to make it look like a murder.
Yeah. All right, moving on. We're going to our next notable keeper. John Robertson was head keeper from 1880 to 1906. 26 years at this lighthouse. Really long time. Mm. He contracted malaria and which, by the way, this sent me on a huge, what's it called?
Rabbit hole.
Yeah,
tangent,
a rabbit hole, a tangent.
Caveat.
That's what I was thinking of. Thank you for all.
Synonym.
For all the words I was thinking of but couldn't figure out. This sent me on a huge tangent into looking at malaria, and because it sounded like, the other assistant keepers and their families were hesitant to be near him. So I was like, do they think that malaria was contagious at that time? But I couldn't find out the details. And it's not, right? No.
Unless you share blood somehow.
Yeah, which is why. It's like mosquitoes.
What did they know in the 1800s? Weren't people like bleeding themselves to get out of having a cold?
They started they had microscopes and stuff.
Well, I mean, someone did, but what did the public know?
Oh, no, probably nothing.
What do scientists know now versus the average Joe?
They thought that you got malaria from swamp air when we were in a swampy area. So
mosquitoes, right?
Yeah. So yeah, they thought it was like smelling the stagnant air could make you sick.
I mean, that's a fair line to draw in their world.
Malaria actually means bad air or something in Greek. I didn't take any notes. I was just reading on my own time. Anyway, he was in bed with fever when the strongest earthquake to ever hit South Carolina happened. And it was a 7.3 in 1886. It's never been an earthquake like it after that. And I think the epicenter was on Charleston. And this is like 30 miles from Charleston or something. But the lighthouse and houses did not sustain any damage besides like cracked plaster. But anything that was on shelves was absolutely destroyed. The assistant keepers and their families came to the keeper's house as his house was the least likely to get hit if the towers fell down. Which is like a crazy thing that you have to think about as a lighthouse keeper.
Whoa, that'd be nuts. It wouldn't make any sound.
Yeah.
You'd just be sitting at your kitchen table, eating mac and cheese, get crushed by a 12-foot tall lantern.
I know. Crushed by a tower.
I wonder if that's ever happened. Oh my gosh. Because all these keepers' houses are close to the towers. Mm-hmm. So they rushed to his house. Least likely to be crushed.
Yeah, so they hid into his house, which is when they were like, it was obvious they didn't want to because he was sick with the fever. I was like, oh, sad. The Lighthouse Board posted their account of the noise as, quote, sounding something like a battery of artillery or a troop of cavalry crossing a long bridge. I'm like, very specific.
I don't know what an earthquake would sound like.
It's just, apparently it made a lot of sound, like long before the shock waves hit them. So it's like you could hear the earth moving. Man,
that's scary.
I know. Like, can you imagine hearing that and not feeling anything? It's like
looking around.
What the heck is that?
Whose Bluetooth speakers on?
Oh my gosh.
What are they watching?
Speakers. 1886. The tremors spooked the estimated 1,000 cranes that were nesting on Raccoon Key, who all took flight at the same time and made a, quote, fearful noise.
I bet.
Can you imagine 1,000?
You think the world is ending?
Pairs of wings flapping at the same time? And these are cranes. They're not small. They're big animals.
Do they squawk as well? Is it like bird?
I bet they were squawking.
Squawking.
They do make sounds. I don't know what they are, though. I would assume it's kind of like that.
God, I wish we had video for this podcast.
I made a bird motion. So while the clockwork stopped during both main shock waves that hit, there was 2 main ones, and the rest were like a little less powerful, but not by any means comfortable.
Sure.
The clockwork stopped during both of them, so it must be something about like the pendulum swinging or something, but it just stopped the rotating of the lens, which is very interesting. The keepers kept the lights on during the entire disaster, so we can commend them for that.
It's pretty cool.
Powering through. Next we have, it's just spelled August, but I know that a lot of people used to be called like Augusta, but it just looks like August.
So. August is a name as well.
August F. Wickman, known for being commended 5 times over his service publicly for helping mariners at Cape Romain. So he's a real lighthouse keeper, life-saving man.
Wickman was his title, or was his last name?
Last name.
Meant to be.
If that's how it's pronounced. I'm doing my best, but it's Wichmann.
Sounds right.
Wickman. 1916, the schooner barge Northwest wrecked near the Cape. 5 men washed ashore on wreckage. The keeper spent 14 hours in a rowboat because his motorboat was broken and swam through the night to save them. 14 hours of like serious manual labor saving these men just because they were there.
That's sad. I mean, that's awesome.
Yeah.
But sad too.
And one of the guys was the captain of this barge, and he exchanged Christmas cards with the keeper for many years after that.
Cool.
Can you imagine somebody saving your life? I'd be like, how
Send
do I
him a Christmas card? Yeah.
I would.
Starbucks gift card.
At the bare minimum, I would be exchanging Christmas cards. But can you imagine how indebted you'd feel? How would you make it?
You can't.
Like, how would you? So anyway, he also got the efficiency star one time at Cape Romain as being the best well-kept station.
Oh, very nice.
So we can commend Wickman. He also had a couple stories about his children. He had 3 wives. First one died in childbirth. I'm going by memory here. Second one, he was married to for over 20 years. She died from a heart attack. Third one was 40 years his junior. 40 years his junior.
Well, he wasn't going to have another one die on him.
But she did.
Oh, no. I shouldn't have said that. Should not have said that.
Should not have said that. Harry Potter reference. She gave birth inside the lighthouse. Very exciting. He went fishing while it happened. So he came back with like a 25-pound fish and was like, "Look what I caught."
And she was
and
dead.
The nurse was like, "Look what I caught," and held up their son in the air.
That's much lighthearted.
I know. So their son was 4. I read this all today. That's the only reason I can remember these numbers. Their son was 4 when they were done at this lighthouse. And then 3 years later, she committed suicide.
Damn.
So there's something evil going on here. Whether it be men.
Immediately. What could it be? Men. What else is there?
Kidding.
Was it the patriarchy, do you think?
It's probably the patriarchy. You know, they beat down all the will of women, you know, in the past.
Suffrage.
Which is a good thing, but sounds awful. Friends reference. Moving on. Those were our notable keepers, which I feel like is something I want to do on other episodes, that I should really be giving more attention to the keepers. They're the heart of the lighthouse.
For a little bit, I would say like the number of keepers and like...
Yeah.
I think I just stopped doing that. But Lighthouse Friends, shout out, the website, they usually list all the keepers and their dates. At the end of
their
That's
article,
really nice.
They put that at the end, which is really helpful when I'm trying to figure out like who was keeper when something happened.
Yeah.
The old tower has lost its lantern room. Not sure when it was removed. I'm thinking I saw a picture of it without the lantern room, and the photo was from 1913. So
I'm telling you, all these lantern rooms, there's got to be a whole black market of lighthouse stuff. I guarantee it.
I'm going to be on there.
Put me on the black market.
Can I get something for cheap?
No.
I want a Fresnel lens.
I'm telling you, people have like, there's a dude in California who has a raptor, that the dinosaur. He has a raptor in his house. They sold it with the house. Millions of dollars. There's people out there like us who are fascinated with lighthouses that have Fresnel lenses, that have keepers logbooks, and they've got the cabinets with the keepers. I'm sure all that stuff is highly collectible and very expensive.
Yeah, true. Okay, I don't want to feed into that kind of business, but I do want that stuff.
I don't think we should feed into it. I do find it interesting.
Yeah. I want stuff, though. All I want is like a prism. I want a Fresnel lens prism. Yep. Put it in a little glass box, like a curio cabinet or something.
Gosh.
I just pulled up a picture of what they look like today. So we've got the lantern room less
There's some
old
forced
tower.
Perspective going on, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's much smaller. We're right up next to the old tower. And so, it's like, why is it so fat?
Why is it so big?
I'm just now seeing it how you're seeing it. That's hilarious.
It's huge.
But isn't that a cool pattern on the new tower?
I like that pattern.
Very clean and pretty.
Yep. Good lines.
The old tower's wooden staircase is nearly gone, so it may be exposed to the elements right now or something, and that's why.
Well, the top is probably not a solid platform.
I'm wondering, because there was a floor of the lantern room.
She gone.
And there was a floor below the lantern room in the watch room.
Observe, yeah. Sad. Bricks look great, though.
The bricks?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the paint's really nice. Do you think the paint looking a little fresh?
I'm not... This is not a joke. That was the one that was built by slave labor, right?
No. The first one, well, as far as I know, the first one was not.
Oh.
It was the tall one.
Oh.
The new tower.
Well, then probably both of them.
Yeah, maybe.
Likely.
I guess, yeah, we don't know details.
I didn't have anything else to say about that. I was just like...
Okay, you were just
wow.
interested. Yeah. Now, the new tower is over 3 feet off plumb, which is plumb is up and down.
Yep.
I wish I had a picture of how slanted, but I can't tell if the photo itself is not up and down, and that's why it looks like. So I didn't include any in our
Leaning Tower of Pisa. You can never really represent it well.
Yeah, got to see it in person.
Supposedly.
New doors were added to the lighthouses in 2010.
Nice.
And an emergency repair was made to the lantern room on the new tower a year later. So somebody just pitched in, some guy,
nice.
Some developer or something. He, I think they discovered that it was unstable while they were putting on the new doors or something, and he fixed it up in 2011. So 6 times a year, the Cape Romain National Wildlife Refuge does boat tours to the island. So if you're willing to trek through some swampy stuff, you can go to the lighthouse to see them up close. But the boat will also take you next to it, and you don't have to get off and go onto the island. November 10th and December 8th are the next tours, and it's a few hours long. And yeah, I was interested to see that December is on the list. November, you can kind of swing it.
It is South Carolina.
True.
I don't know how cold it gets there.
Yeah, apparently it stays very windy on this island, so it's like a toss-up whether or not you'll be able to get off.
Wow.
But yeah.
So that's the only visitation? There's no, can't climb,
nothing
there's
else.
no...
Nobody's in charge of these. They're just out there. They're protected places, and...
It's pretty crazy. Think about any structure that's in town that's not taken care of. It deteriorates.
Yeah.
20 years would be great before. And then, of course, people smash windows and steal things, which doesn't help. But lighthouses are built with architecture, a lot of them, that lasts even if they're not taken care of. At least the brick, which is crazy. Brick and steel.
And these survived a crazy earthquake and had no restoration on them. They're just still stable.
Well, and today we design things to be rated for seismic activity.
Yeah.
So the project I worked on near Charleston is seismic restraints on all the ductwork and stuff. So equipment and things don't fail early, along with all the structural and everything else.
Right.
These weren't built. No one knew that.
Oh, yeah.
It was someday these might sway.
Firmly straight up and down.
Nope. How tall is that black and white, the new tower?
150, yeah. And looks relatively skinny. It doesn't taper out, really.
Yeah, pretty flat.
Those are Cape Romain Lighthouses.
Very cool.
One of them's just a stump. But one of the oldest of its kind in the U.S. still standing. So it's we can commend them for that.
It's interesting how the towers are still there on a lot of these places, but the lantern room goes.
Yeah, it just corrodes, I guess. I mean, the seawater and stuff.
People take it.
Yeah.
Three Sisters, they talked about those. Triangle Island doesn't have its lantern room for obvious reasons. Well, I have several messages I've read lately, 4 or 5 people now more than that, on comments on YouTube. So thank you for all of those. I really appreciate it.
Love comments.
But also, people are saying that they've binge watched all of our episodes, which is, what are we, 3 years in?
2.5.
We're 2.5 in, which is crazy. And then
this is episode 63.
I'm always busy, but I haven't uploaded. If they're only watching on YouTube, I haven't uploaded our first
10 or something, right?
I want to say 19.
Oh.
Yeah. Because we didn't prepare that way when we were early on. So
yeah, I didn't want it to be a YouTube thing.
But I think somebody I asked which one was their favorite episode, and they said one of the Upper Peninsula, might have been Split Rock.
Michigan?
Yeah. I can't remember now. But they wanted us to cover some more in that area, so we'll look at that.
Oh, yeah, I saw that.
I think it was Upper Peninsula.
I actually picked out this lighthouse because I was looking for areas we didn't have any. I don't think we've covered a single lighthouse in South Carolina.
I've got a lot of ideas, and a lot of them are not just lighthouses, but broader topics. And it could be specials, but got to do some research.
Sometimes we get into a habit of posting a bunch of fun ones back to back, and we don't do a lighthouse for 4 episodes. I'm like, oh no.
Yeah. I've always been guilty of that. I've always been well, what else is lighthouse adjacent?
We did a lot of that early on. We did I did prohibition with lighthouses and stuff. That was a time span where we had a lot of episodes that weren't about lighthouses.
I still think it's important. If you want, I don't know, I guess I know why some people would. So if you want to get somebody excited about lighthouses, yes, it's nice to go see one on a trip or something and talk about this, how many steps it has and, the years. Like, that's important, and we cover it on all of our episodes.
Mm-hmm.
But also what happened here.
Yeah.
What's relevant. Like, it's historical. Almost all of them have historical significance. Almost all of them, like I keep saying, have local cultural significance.
Right.
And a lot of people care about one lighthouse. They don't care about lighthouses and the culture and the surrounding,
because they relate
just, like,
in some way to it.
Yeah, this one,
like
this
I grew
story,
up
or
looking
this
at
town.
this one, or
Yeah.
I
So I think it's
volunteered.
really neat. It's kind of where our show comes in.
Yeah, heck yeah.
We don't have a particular one. We're into all of them.
Yeah, I don't have a lot of favoritism.
I did. Did I tell you? I saw the one in Salina.
Wait, what?
It's still there. Salina, Kansas. So there's one, I talked about it a long time ago.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, it was at like an old putt-putt course, and then it turned into a like motocross track,
Right.
and now it's abandoned. It's still there.
The lighthouse?
The lighthouse is still there.
And you saw it and you didn't go investigate?
Listen, I was going to take a picture, but I was on the interstate, and that would have been unsafe.
Oh, yeah, you're right. We don't
And
condone that.
I also did not get off the highway to investigate. Maybe another time when I go out towards where I grew up.
It's not that far from us, so.
Thank you to our YouTube listeners. Thank you to everybody on our website. I don't want to keep making promises, but I think non-specifically, there's a lot of exciting things coming.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Oh, I'm doing a spooky episode. Speaking of happening right away. Excuse me. Wait until it's time. I'm doing a spooky episode. On what's the date? Let's see. October 28th. No. What good are you?
I hit the wrong one.
You're no longer in charge of sound effects.
Straight to jail.
Straight to jail. But I'm going to do I'm going to do a haunted lighthouse. Okay?
Very good.
So it'll be good. Thank you for everybody who are listening, even if you're like a first-time listener or you're a returning listener. We appreciate all the views, and get out there and love lighthouses.
Yeah. If you made it this far, you're an MVP, most valuable person listening to Lighthouse. Lowdown podcast.
MVP. LLLLL. So check out our Instagram at The Lighthouse Lowdown. We got YouTube. We got places you can listen to our podcast. We've got a map on our website, thelihthouselowdown .com. I was at gmail.com, which is our email in case you want to email us any fun stories you have about lighthouses or anything you want us to cover. People have been leaving us lighthouses they want us to cover, or certain areas they want us to cover, and we are on it. We just have a queue going, so it might take us some time, but we are on it.
It's good.
Right.
Good problem to have.
Yeah. Thank you all for listening, and we'll catch you next time on the Lighthouse Lowdown.